Are you guys all in the right place?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so welcome everybody. We're using Gather Magazine. It's the new green cover, and we're on page 20 for our devotional study for May.
We call it devotional.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of,
Right.
kind of throws you because
Right,
it says
right. And
Bible
just a
study.
reminder, there is a second Bible study that starts for June. Yeah,
Yeah.
because June, they do June,
Oh,
July,
kind
and
of a
August. Right.
Transition year, huh? A
Yeah,
year.
so it's all, yes, and it's kind of all in the same, yeah, that is a little confusing, so. We pray? Oh God, our compassionate companion, you walk beside us through life's joys and sorrows. When we suffer, you are with us. We ask that you heal all who are living with a mental illness. Help us, your hands and feet in this world, to turn our prayers into action. We recognize that our biblical ancestors also faced mental health struggles. Today, as our society continues to discover more about mental illness, may we and our faith communities become beacons of light and hope to our brothers and sisters who struggle. Help us to be loving companions on one another's journeys. Amen. Okay, so I kind of glanced through this a little bit before. Because we got the mail at like 3 o'clock.
Oh, needless to say, we didn't.
Well, clearly, yeah. So I did get a chance to glance through it a little bit, so I'll start. When I was a child, my encounters with people living with mental illness were, as far as I knew then, very few. From books, movies, and TV, I absorbed a picture of these folks as either frightening or out of control, incoherent, or incapable of functioning. My church never spoke about mental illness except to say that suicide was a terrible sin. Then, when my mom was diagnosed with major depression in the 1960s, I began to put a face on that picture. In the face of someone I loved. Years later, when I received my bipolar diagnosis, I came to understand something else. Anyone, even those who seem to be functioning successfully in life, can have mental health issues. Since beginning treatment, I have become very active as a writer and speaker on mental health. I am passionate about helping to erase the stigma that still exists around living with mental illness. I have been heartened to learn about the steps many faith communities are taking to make a positive difference in both the perception of mental illness and the practices that provide practical help and support. She hopes this devotional will add to our understanding and inspire us and our congregation to reach out to more than 20% of the people who live with diagnosed mental illness. Jesus' earthly life of compassion, service, and healing should be our model. So we start with Ruth. Ruth, who was what, the great grandmother of Jesus? I can never remember all those greats.
You reading all this?
Ruth 1, yeah, I think so. It's a good story. I think it's a good story. Don't you think it's a
You
good
wanna
story?
start?
It's after
I gotta
Judges.
find Ruth.
This was after Judges.
Oh, early, okay.
Yeah, very early.
I got
After Joshua.
You wanna read
So,
half of it out?
What are we reading?
Ruth 1, the whole thing.
Okay.
It's not that long. It seems like it is. And we're probably familiar with most of the story, I would
Which
think.
one? I'll read,
Yeah.
there's 22, I'll read 11.
Okay.
Once upon a time, it was back in the days when judges led Israel, there was a famine in the land. A man from Bethlehem in Judah left home to live in the country of Moab. He and his wife and his 2 sons. The man's name was Elimelech. His wife's name was Naomi. His sons were named Mahlon and Chilion, all Ephraimites from Bethlehem in Judah. They all went to the country of Moab and settled there. Elimelech died, and Naomi was left, she and her 2 sons. The sons took Moabite wives. The name of the first was Orpah, the second Ruth. They lived there in Moab for the next 10 years, but then the 2 brothers, Mahlon and Chilion, died. Now the woman was left without either her young men or her husband. One day she got herself together, she and her 2 daughters-in-law, to leave the country of Moab and set out for home. She had heard that God had been pleased to visit his people and give them food, and so she started out from the place she had been living, she and her 2 daughters-in-law with her, on the road back to the land of Judah. After a short while on the road, Naomi told her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back, go home and live with your mothers, and may God treat you as graciously as you treated your deceased husbands and me. May God give each of you a new home and a new husband." She kissed them and they cried openly. They said, "No, we're going on with you to your people." Then I'll let you go.
But Naomi said, "Return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? I am going to have any more sons who could become your husbands. Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband. Even if I thought there was still hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to sons, would you wait until they grew up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters. It is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has gone out against me." At this they wept again. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to hers. "Look," said Naomi, "your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. Go back with her." But Ruth replied, "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if anything but death separate you and me." When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. So the 2 women went on until they came to Bethlehem. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them, and the women exclaimed, "Can this be Naomi?" "Don't call me Naomi," she told them. "Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I even went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has inflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me." So Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, arriving in Bethlehem. So the berry harvest was beginning. As the berry harvest. Barley harvest. Barley harvest was
Yeah, it
beginning.
kinda looks like barely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that too. No, and the E and the,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. You wanna go on, Alice?
Okay. With the deaths of her husband and sons, Naomi has been dealt some severe blows in life. In response, she experiences a profound depression, calling herself Mara, which means bitter. Naomi and her daughter-in-law Ruth, who of course has also lost her husband, become a beloved community for each other, walking together and guiding one another to a place of comfort and healing. Their circumstances affect them differently, and depression does not lift overnight. But in their love and support for each other, we see how caring people can bring hope to the hopeless. Kirsten Peachy is a pastor and director of Faith and Health Partnership for the ELCA Afflicted Advocate Healthcare in Illinois. She encourages congregations to build and strengthen their connections, revealing the loving communities already there. This work is not without challenges. Pastor Peachy says it can be difficult to break the cycle of pretending in many churches. Often people with mental health struggles pretend to be fine out of shame for their situation and the fear of being shunned, she says. At the same time, clergy can sometimes be overwhelmed by church members' mental health needs, and church members can feel ill-equipped to help each other. However, Pastor Peachy maintains that we are all well qualified to serve as companions for one another. We don't have to fix things, she explains. The most important thing is our loving presence. Just as Ruth stayed with Naomi, and Naomi with Ruth, we can be there for those who are suffering. All of us have a healing presence, Pastor Peachy says. The key is to truly see, hear, and hold someone in your heart.
So the question, Naomi and Ruth's special bond comforted both women and offered healing for each. Have you or a loved one ever experienced depression? And if so, what did it feel like? Did someone or something make a difference for you in the struggle? Have you ever found yourself able to support someone else even amid your own struggles? Lots of questions.
Tom had a sister with depression, and in Wisconsin, they seeked out mental health services, and I remember talking about that with her and her husband and being open about it, but when you're far away, that's about all you can do is just be supportive, I guess.
Well, I think people go through it when there's a death in the family, like, some type of a depression, I mean, it's not long, but,
It's not clinical
it's not
depression, there's a
clinical,
difference
but it's-
between
Yeah,
depression
can be.
and clinical.
it can end up,
certainly-
sure.
It certainly can.
Yes.
I think when you're diagnosed with
Different
things.
things, yeah.
I think people
You
have a
go through a
stigma.
period,
Yeah, like
Stigma.
cancer or,
Yeah.
oh,
Yep.
yes, yes.
terminal illness of some kind.
Yeah,
Right.
or someone close to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. It says, did something or someone make a difference in the struggle?
I think there's always that one friend or somebody that,
Something said,
yeah, hits a chord or, I mean, and it's not always the same person.
It's usually,
And it's not-
in my experience, it's usually not somebody that's necessarily super close to you either.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Because
just
sometimes the
something
people
that
that are
just,
closest to you don't know how to help you.
Yeah.
yeah,
You
No,
know?
you're right.
somebody will just say something, you're watching.
yeah, something just
It's-
click or something, or,
There's movies, I mean, every once in a while, there'll be a movie on, like a Hallmark movie, or there'll be something that comes up, and I'm thinking they're in situations like this, one of them, and then it seems like it's, some person says something like, oh, yeah, okay. Well, maybe.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so depression is a mental health condition that can occur even when there's no reason to be sad. It can also be affected by life circumstances, including loss, like Naomi and Ruth experienced, or loneliness and isolation, something that became more common during the pandemic. For many, this depression hasn't lifted. So where and how do you find support when you feel hopeless despite your life of faith?
the granddaughter's confirmation was yesterday. And they all had to write their faith statements.
Mhm.
And they showed 4 different students. They had a video, and there was this one girl that said she had decided that that was her last day on earth, and that she said, I didn't think I wanted to be here tomorrow. And just said, God, show me a sign. And she was there at confirmation yesterday, but the pastor even said, we didn't know this was going on with her at all.
Yeah, you don't.
And he said for her to get up and tell that after the fact, he said it just breaks my heart, that she went through that, but she got through it and,
Which makes her
But-
strong,
Yeah,
a stronger
yeah.
person,
Yeah,
yeah.
And maybe someone had said something that they didn't even realize.
yeah.
That
Made
clicked,
an
There was-
yeah.
And there was another gal too that, you know, she kinda did the same thing, she said, I just didn't have, you know, have faith. And she told God, she said, you know, show me a sign, show me, headlights. You know, and she said she came out of wherever she was at, and there, out of the blue, were headlights.
Oh, gosh.
You know, she said it just really struck her and
Hmm.
that turned her around. But where she came up with
Headlights,
you know,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
she probably knew that there was no way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Or maybe,
I-
or maybe it was more like she was making a metaphor to it, might be.
Yeah.
You know, I need you to lead me, give me
Yeah.
Show me
some
the light.
headlights, to
Yeah.
show me where I'm supposed to
Yeah.
go, or to what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. You just, you know, for 14-year-old kids, it was pretty moving.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
But, you know, and that's what the pastor said, you know, this age group of kids, there's a lot of stuff going on. He says,
Absolutely.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
He says, we need to keep
an eye on it.
Yeah,
And
you
listen.
know,
Well, and those
this is
people-
not
and
an
those
end,
people-
this is just a
And those
beginning.
people that say that confirmation isn't important, you know, that it's archaic, that it's old fashioned, you don't need to do it, and it's not, you know, I don't think they understand how important it is for kids to have community.
Yeah.
And that's basically what confirmation is, it's establishing community
Mhm.
among their peers,
Yeah.
you know, and I think for whatever reasons, I mean, there's a litany of reasons, I think, but for whatever reasons, you know, our society has become more separated. You know, it used to be you had your nuclear family, right? And then you had grandparents and great-grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins were all within.
They were all within a few
Yeah,
miles.
you were all within a few, you know, maybe
Or
a
the
day's
same state.
or even the same state, yeah, or whatever, you know, you always went and visited and you always saw each other and you grew up around each other. And then, you know, now our society is so mobile that you just don't, and you know, I mean, it's great to have video chats and things like that, but it's not the same as being in community. And it's not the same as having, you know, I can run over to grandma's and talk to her anytime I want to. You know, it's not the same, you know, and I think kids these days especially are really
yeah.
missing, you know, now they have all these sports after school and they have this sport and that sport and they're going this way and that way and up and down and over to here and around there and there is no time to seek out that relationship with,
Make a connection.
yeah. I mean, whether it's a biological grandparent or an adopted grandparent or a neighbor or whatever, there's just no time for them. You know, they're so busy and we forget how important it is for them to have that community. And I always worry about kids that don't have that community. You know,
Yeah.
Mhm.
they just, and even if they say they don't need it, they do need it.
Yeah.
Or they say, I'm okay,
Yeah.
you know,
And
that's
and they're not.
A normal response.
yeah.
Yeah, we all do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so shall we move, oh yeah, let's move on to Saul, yeah, good old
Okay.
Saul.
okay, so
Samuel.
you,
First Samuel, so it's not too far from where we were, First Samuel 16, so it'll be like the next book of the Bible.
First Samuel 16.
And we start with 14th verse, and then we go into, and then into chapter 19.
Okay, that's 27, I think.
So 16, 14 to 23.
16, 14.
Now, remember that Saul was king, and David had been selected to be anointed the next king.
Okay, so
Now,
this.
that was already a touchy situation, clearly. And yet they stick this kid, I mean, he's still a kid
Yeah.
in the court of the king that is. Yeah, so,
It says, but the Lord's spirit had left Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him. Saul's servant said to him, see, an evil spirit from God is troubling you. Give us the command to look for someone who will play the harp. When the evil spirit from God troubles you, he will play, and you will feel better. So Saul said to his servants, find someone who can play well, and bring him to me. One of the servants said, I have seen a son of Jesse of Bethlehem play the harp. He is brave and courageous. He is a good speaker and handsome, and the Lord is with him. Then Saul sent messengers to Jesse, saying, send me your son David, who is with the sheep. So Jesse loaded a donkey with bread, a leather bag full of wine, and a young goat. And he sent them with his son David to Saul. When David came to Saul, he began to serve him. Saul liked David and made him the officer who carried his armor. Saul sent a message to Jesse saying, let David stay and serve me because I like him. When the evil spirit from God troubled Saul, David would take his harp and play. Then the evil spirit would leave him and Saul would feel better.
Okay, an interesting thing in this
Okay.
translation, you know, it's a little looser. But instead of the dark, it says after that, whenever the bad depression from God tormented
Oh,
Saul.
so it
Ah.
did.
okay, then the next part of the story is
19.
1 to 24. Chapter 19, 1 to 24. So just a couple chapters later, and all of a sudden, things have changed.
The Black Mood of Saul,
Yeah.
One, two, there's
Is that
seven.
what it says in yours?
the top.
I must, oh, I did flip a page.
You're not gonna-
Okay.
you don't wanna read the
19,
whole
1 through 20,
You gonna read more?
I can read, yeah, I can read. Okay. So, Saul took his son Jonathan and all his servants to kill David, but Jonathan liked David very much. So he warned David, my father Saul is looking for a chance to kill you. Watch out in the morning, hide in a secret place. I will go out and stand with my father in the field where you are hiding, and I'll talk to him about you. Then I'll let you know what I find out. When Jonathan talked to Saul, his father, he said good things about David, Jonathan said. The king should do no wrong to your servant, David, since he has done nothing wrong to you. What he has done has helped you greatly. David risked his life when he killed Goliath, the Philistine, and the Lord won a great victory for all Israel. You saw it and were happy. Why would you do wrong against David? He's innocent. There's no reason to kill him. Saul listened to Jonathan and then made his promise. As surely as the Lord lives, David won't be put to death. So Jonathan called to David and told him everything that had been said. He brought David to Saul, and David was with Saul as before. When war broke out again, David went out to fight the Philistines. He defeated them, and they ran away from him. But once again, an evil spirit from the Lord rushed upon Saul as he was sitting in his house with his spear in his hand. David was playing the harp. Saul tried to pin David to the wall with his spear, but David jumped out of the way. So Saul's spear went into the wall, and David ran away that night. Saul sent messengers to David's house to watch it and kill him in the morning. But Michal,
Mikhail,
Mikhail? Okay. David's wife warned him, saying, tonight you must run for your life. If you don't, you will be dead in the morning. So she let David down out of a window, and he ran away and escaped. Then Mikhail took an idol, laid it on the bed, covered it with clothes, and put goat's hair at its head. And Saul sent messengers to take David prisoner, but Mikhail said, he is sick. Saul sent them back to see David, saying, bring him to me on his bed so I can kill him. When the messengers entered David's house, they found just an idol on the bed with goat's hair on its head. Saul said to Mikhail, why did you trick me this way? You let my enemy go so he could run away. Mikhail answered, David told me if I did not help him escape, he would kill me. After David had escaped from Saul, he went to Samuel at Ramah and told him everything Saul had done to him. Then David and Samuel went to Naioth
Sure.
and stayed there. Saul heard that David was in Naioth at Ramah, so
Ramah.
Ramah, okay. So he sent messengers to capture him. But they met a group of prophets prophesying, with Samuel standing there leading them. So the Spirit of God entered Saul's men, and they also prophesied. When Saul heard the news, he sent more messengers, but they also prophesied. Then he sent messengers to a third time, but they also prophesied. Finally, Saul himself went to Ramah, to the well at Seku. He asked, "Where are Samuel and David?" The people answered, "In Naioth at Ramah." When Saul went to Naioth at Ramah, the Spirit of the God also rushed upon him, and he walked on, prophesying until he came to Naioth at Ramah.
Whatever.
He took off his robes and prophesied in front of Samuel. He lay that way all day and all night. That is why people ask, is even Saul one of the prophets?
Or just crazy.
Right.
The people are still talking about it.
Holy cow.
People are still talking.
Okay, I think the soap operas have something on it, like, holy cow, the Bible's just like a big soap opera. Okay, so it says, while there wasn't an understanding of brain chemistry at the time of King Saul, people now believe that he may have lived with bipolar disorder. Symptoms include extreme mood swings, ahead to that, from euphoria and hyperactivity to manic episodes to the total despair of depressive episodes. There would have been no medication or psychiatric care for Saul, and it appeared he suffered greatly. Saul had tremendous wealth and power, but that didn't prevent his suffering. People who seemingly have it all, or have it all together, are not exempt from mental health issues. Some scholars mention 1 Samuel as a possible manic episode, 1 Samuel 19. Saul's relationship with David reflected his illness as he swung between loving David and being soothed by his music to trying to kill him in a jealous rage. Sadly, Saul's life ended with suicide. Dr. Deb Cart, a Lutheran who shared her story in May of 2014 issue of the Lutheran, had a long and distinguished career that included Army officer, healthcare executive, senior epidemiologist at the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta. Yet through much of this time, Dr. Karch lived with undiagnosed bipolar disorder. It made her life painful and difficult enough that she attempted suicide at one point. After she began psychiatric treatment, she joined a church, participated in a group Bible study, and connected with a caring pastor whose daughter was also living with bipolar. All of this made a huge difference in her life. Some comments should not be made to someone with mental illness or their family member. For instance, Dr. Karch shares that it was very harmful when church members had the perception that a person who is mentally ill just needs to pray. While prayer is good, a person with mental illness also needs to be properly diagnosed and treated, she says. Only when she was diagnosed and received medication could she then begin to understand how to explore a relationship with God. So she cautioned people to not make harmful comments about people with mental illness, like, you just need to pray. The implication is that prayer and medical care are in opposition to each other. How might such a comment discourage someone from getting much needed help? Well, you could obviously see how that might. Yeah. And do you believe that God expects us not only to pray, but to put our faith into action, including seeking good medical care?
Yes.
Well, I think people equate mental health and physical health as being two separate things.
Yeah.
And they are so closely
Yeah.
related.
I think that's maybe changing. It's slowly.
I hope so.
Yeah, I like to hope that it's slowly changing.
I hope so. I hope so. So have you or someone you love ever hidden a mental or emotional struggle out of fear?
I can see why you would, you know, maybe. I don't know of anybody, but
Well, Matt Retz comes to mind.
oh.
I think people see it as the individual thinks of it as a perceived weakness,
Yes.
and it's
Right.
not it's a very physical.
I have to wonder about Scott Fell, because he
Oh.
committed suicide.
Yeah.
years ago, you know, and he would, you know, he lived out by us, he would take walks on the road and that, but
He was their neighbor.
it was a neighbor that, and I
Young
just
man.
going, okay, and when it happened, I'm going like, but then he'd went to college, you know, I mean, he was, you know, 20-some, and I'm going like, you know, maybe things changed in college, you know, maybe friends-wise, I mean, you know, I always thought he was the youngest in the family, and I kind of perceived him maybe being a little bit more of a loner. Yeah, but I don't know. It was just kind of a surprise to me. I just
You know, you just hope that, you know, with all the social media and all that kind of stuff, that things are getting better.
No,
You know.
I think if anything, social
Well,
media makes it worse.
Well,
I
but
just
you know, you think people should be more informed than they ever used to be.
I think in
You
terms
know,
of information, yes.
Yeah,
But social
yeah.
media has,
Well, yeah,
especially for kids.
for kids,
Yeah.
I don't think
No,
they can't comprehend some of the things sometimes. I think that is out there for them. You know, they really take it to, oh, this is really
Well, yes, and you know, the thing with social media is, you know, once it's out there, it's out there.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah,
coming back.
you know, it used to be, you know, you had the little rumor mill in your town, and you know, once a rumor died, then okay, that's, you know, it's just that town and nobody else. If you leave that town, nobody's ever gonna, it's not gonna follow you, it's not gonna go anywhere. But this is different with social media these days now. You know, it's, you know, what things you say and things that get said about you and things that you do.
Oh, yeah.
They go with you
They don't go
wherever you
away.
go. Yeah,
And somebody can look it up.
yeah.
I mean, you know,
Which is really sad because
Yeah.
some of the stuff is so, like, they're flat out lies about people.
yeah,
You know, and it's like,
But once it's out there,
yes,
it's pretty hard to
There's
just
no
sell
vetting.
it, yeah.
yes, yes.
Today, and I was subbing in 7th grade, and it was the technology program, and they were talking about artificial intelligence and how they can take a person's face
Yep.
and put it on a different body,
Yeah.
and they can have this body doing beautiful or the opposite,
Yep.
and doing things that that person would
Would not
never be
be.
doing or not doing.
yeah, how,
And
you know, they show
you-
how to alter photos and that
Yes.
kind of
And
stuff.
voices,
You think,
Yes.
oh my goodness, kids.
and these kids are sitting there going, uh-huh,
Yeah.
uh-huh.
You know, so is it the truth? I mean, they've gotta kind of sort it out and say, is this true or is this not
Right.
true?
Right,
When how do you tell?
And how, yeah, I mean,
And we're blind, I mean, we haven't a clue.
No, we don't.
Pretty
We
soon
know.
you just can't believe anything.
no.
We
Right.
pretty much
You
can't.
just
Yeah,
really
that's-
can't believe
that's pretty much
anything
it
that you
anymore.
see on social media. You just think, yeah. I
You
don't
know,
know.
and they, and I,
Or not even look at it, you know?
Yeah.
You know, that's hard not to do too, but that's one of the problems of.
but it's scary to think,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
that they can do this, and you have no control over what is being done to that individual.
No.
There are no copyright laws, and one of the kids said there have to be laws established to try and control this before it becomes worse.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, but how do you enforce it? How do you, how can you can catch a plagiarist because of the written,
Now with
Things.
AI, I
but
don't
with
even
now
know
with
if you
AI,
can
I don't know.
catch a plagiarist. Is-
Apparently they can. I've heard that they can.
With
They can
AI?
trace where it comes from. And stuff. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
I have no
Well, I
idea
hope
how they
so.
do it. Yeah.
so the next generation.
Same way with,
of people
you know,
are
emails
learning
that are
to
sent
do it.
supposedly sneakily,
Yeah.
you know, or, you know, that kind of thing or whatever.
But so much of that can lead to mental illness or mental emotional.
It can trigger. It
Yeah.
can trigger.
Yes.
If that's weakness and you're dealing with it, it certainly can trigger a bad outcome.
Yes. Very much so.
Sadly, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Shall we go on? Okay, our first king. We have to look back. Next.
First Kings.
So after first and second.
Nineteen.
Yep, there we go. Oh yeah, this is Elijah. Yeah, okay. Weren't we talking about him the other night? Can't remember. That was choir? Yeah, that was the choir.
going?
The still small voice, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what it was. Yeah. I thought we talked about him.
Yeah, because someone says, who was it that,
Caitlin asked.
yeah.
Is it your turn, my turn?
Where were
Oh,
we?
She
it's-
read,
I
she
know,
read.
it's my turn.
Yeah,
Your
go,
turn?
go for it. Go
Okay,
for it.
Elijah flees to Horeb.
Wherever. Yeah, read. It doesn't
Now
matter, just
Ahab
read.
told Jezebel everything Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with a sword. So Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah to say, "May the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like that of one of them." Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there, while he himself went a day's journey into the desert. He came to a broom tree, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. "I have had enough, Lord," he said. "Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors." Then he lay down under the tree and fell asleep. All at once an angel touched him and said, "Get up and eat." He looked around, and there by his head was a cake of bread baked over hot coals in a jar of water. He ate and drank and then lay down again. The angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, "Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you." So he got up and ate and drank. Strengthened by that food, he traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb and the mountain of God. There he went into a cave and he spent the night.
Go on.
Sure,
Yeah, go for it.
go ahead.
And the word of the Lord came to him. "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He replied, "I have been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, broken down your altars, and put your prophets to death with the sword. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too." The Lord said, "Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face and went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. Then a voice said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He replied, "I have been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, broken down your altars, and put your prophets to death with the sword. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too." The Lord said to him, "Go back the way you came. Go to the desert of Damascus. When you get there, anoint Hazael king over Aram. Also anoint Jesu, the son of Nimshi king over Israel, and anoint Elijah, son of Shepha, and from Abi Mohala,
Sure.
to succeed you as prophet. Jesu will put to death any who escape the sword of Hazael, and Elisha will put to death any who escape the sword of Jehu. Yet I reserve 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed down to Baal, and all whose mouths have not kissed him." So Elijah went from them and found Elijah, son of Shaphat. He was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen, and he himself was
A lot of oxen.
driving the 12th pair.
That's a
Fair.
lot of oxen, Jake.
24.
It is.
He was really digging deep.
Cow, I guess so. Good grief.
Elijah went up to him and threw his cloak around him. Elijah then left his oxen and ran after Elijah. "Let me kiss my father and mother goodbye," he said, "and then I will come with you." "Go back," Elijah said. have I done to you? So Elijah left him and went back. He took his yoke of oxen and slaughtered them. He burned the plowing equipment to cook the meat and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he set out to follow Elijah and became his attendant.
Okay, well, who wants to read next? Go, I don't care.
The prophet plowing with the 12th team, he wasn't plowing on the
12, he was playing
12
with the
teams.
12 teams,
team.
but there were 12
12
teams
teams.
of oxen,
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
So my guess is he was alternating them,
Oh,
right? They-
Sure.
'cause I saw, once when we were traveling on I-80 through Amish country on the way to Mandy's
Yeah.
house, we saw, it was one of those like bizarre juxtaposition moments. You have all these cars racing by on
Yeah.
I-80 and here's this
It's
Amish
awesome.
farmer with his horses out
Yeah.
and plowing the field. But I could see he had a set of
Another
horses down
ones?
here in the shade and he had another set of horses up here and he was plowing with a third set. So that, my guess is that's what's going on.
Rotating
Just
around.
But still 12, that's a lot. 12 pairs of
It
oxen.
shows he had quite a bit of money.
Money,
So
yeah.
That was a lot.
Apparently.
That was a lot of meat.
That's a lot of meat, because oxen they're not small
Yeah.
creatures.
No.
Okay, sorry, we got off task.
The prophet Elijah had been doing all the right things for the Lord, yet he found himself hunted by a cruel ruler, Jezebel. Becoming incredibly worried and anxious, Elijah hid in a cave. There God came to Elijah in a moment of silence. God's whisper, a sign that God was very near, gave Elijah hope, a plan of action, and relief from his anxiety. For 20 years, I served as director of spiritual formation at an ELCA congregation outside Philadelphia. Beginning in 2005, I spent about a year struggling with very troubling symptoms, including intense manic episodes. I remember feeling that God had abandoned me, even after I had tried so hard to do good things in my congregation and community. My anxiety about the future became unbearable. I wondered if I had a future at all. Finally, after seeking psychiatric help, I heard a whisper of hope in a therapist's quiet office. I had a plan of action. I would continue with talk therapy and begin a daily regimen of antidepressants and antipsychotic medications. Still anxious, I debated telling my congregation what was going on with me. Taking a deep breath, I wrote the church a letter in which I was completely honest. Then I waited for the reaction. Would I be fired? Would these good people give up on me? To my relief and joy, they embraced me wholeheartedly. I was able to continue in that job for many more years. I was also able to be a sounding board and a resource for church members who also had mental health issues in their lives. My work for God had not ended at all. God used me to reach others in a very special way. I think of how Elijah had God's love and protection, which gave this prophet confidence even at his lowest point. At my lowest point, I felt that same love, and my anxiety about the future also began to be replaced by hope and confidence.
So, what makes you anxious?
I think sometimes the unknown makes you anxious. You're not sure.
Money or the lack thereof,
Money, health, a
health,
number of things. Loss,
Family.
loss,
loss.
family. Yeah.
Being in some kind of a storm or driving in bad weather or being in a
Situation where
Situation.
you have no control.
Right.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Aren't we all just control freaks a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, don't we all wanna play God?
it's the unknown.
Yeah, okay, so do you think some people are naturally more anxious than others?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I agree with that too.
But everybody's,
Everybody
has
suffers with
a certain amount.
anxiety and worry.
but
Yes.
it's on a spectrum.
There are some people who take it to
It's
the
debilitating.
nth degree, yes,
Yeah.
it is debilitating, it is debilitating.
What an awful feeling.
And the influence of an anxious person can make it worse
For the.
for
yeah.
others
Yeah.
too. I
Well,
think of kids whose parents are, put a lot of pressure on them for things
Yes.
and are thinking, they want the best for them, but actually it's working almost in the opposite direction because it's a lot of pressure and they have to feel like they feel like they need to succeed in the way that their parents want them to.
Or some kids will say, after they've been through, I don't know, what I would say, some sports things in there, and say, I never really wanted to do that in the beginning, but, but every one of them, they do, they allow them to say that, but, some of them, maybe it is that way, it's just like, their parents are putting a little pressure on them, like, we want you to do this and that, but you also have to realize, sometimes some kids need to be pushed to
Right,
go out and try
right.
something.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it's
You know,
a,
it's a,
yes.
it's a
you
fine
know,
line
fine
thing.
You don't want your kids to sit in front of a computer all the time, you
No.
want them to be active or try different things.
Right,
But then again, you force them to do something they don't wanna do,
yeah.
you can kinda see the kids that don't really wanna be there, but.
Yeah, that's a hard,
It's a hard thing to.
it is, it's hard. It's
the
very
hard thing about parenting.
Yeah, to know,
Yep.
yeah, to know,
But,
You
you know, there again, like in church too, you shouldn't keep from trying or asking them, cause there might become a point where, maybe
Maybe I'll
they're,
try this.
maybe their interest peaks or a friend is, doing something and that looks kind of fun, or, just like church, well, we've asked them already, well, you just don't
Timing,
know.
yeah.
again,
You
Timing.
don't, yeah.
persistence sometimes
Yeah.
pays off.
Yeah,
Exactly.
just,
Sometimes the timing isn't right,
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
Timing is
Yeah.
huge,
It's just,
Yeah.
and sometimes who asks the person,
yeah.
that sometimes matters
Yeah.
too, I agree
and
with
nothing
that.
against the other person, but
No,
Yeah.
sometimes
Timing,
it's,
yeah.
again, sometimes it's just the timing.
it's just the time, yeah.
Yeah, I get really frustrated with Kim sometimes because he'll keep putting things off and putting things, well, it's just not the right time. And I'm like, I get frustrated because sometimes it isn't the right time. And sometimes you need to recognize and you need to be willing to accept that. Like when you ask someone, do you mind helping, or can you do this, or can you do that? And they're like, yeah, this is a really crazy time right now, and I just, I don't feel like I could do it justice. Or
And
whatever.
you respect it.
And you need to say,
Totally
that's
respect
great.
that.
Just don't
Yeah.
forget about us in the future.
Mhm.
Because I think sometimes we need to give people the permission to say no anymore.
Absolutely.
I think people put so much pressure on you to, can't you please just do one more thing? Just do one more thing. Just do one more thing. Well, by the time you do that 10 times, it's like,
Yeah.
I can't do one more thing. I just can't.
Or then they get burnt out and they're done.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then you really have
Then
issues.
you've really
You
lost
have
them.
have issues with depression, and you have issues with failure, and you have issues with, feeling hurt and that whole thing too. Yeah. So where do you feel closest to God?
I think outside. You
And-
can't look at nature and
Nature,
not
yeah.
believe in
Yeah.
God. I mean.
Even snakes?
Well,
They have their, they do have their purpose.
You said something about snakes the last time when we
Oh, Gary can't stand
Oh,
snakes.
jeez, that's what, somebody
Yeah.
said something about it last time about snakes. No, can't do snakes.
Us, Gary.
Snake has been in the history of
Yeah.
biblical happenings since way back.
Oh, yeah.
They're okay, but they're over there.
Yeah.
They're okay over there.
You just live where I can't see you. As long as
Yeah.
I don't see you, I don't need to know about you. It's kind of like me with mice. I'm the same way with
Yeah.
mice. You live out there, I don't care if
I
you
know.
come in my house. Please don't come
This
in
is
my
my
house.
house, you're toast.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I'm not dealing with you, my husband is, because I don't do
Me
mice.
too, me too.
On the farm, march outside in the farm, and the corn cribs and stuff,
Yeah.
everybody, but they come in my house.
No, it's like, that's the line right there.
Yeah.
Yep, outside you go. Yeah.
Same way with box elder bugs.
Okay, okay.
I don't hate them.
So, when do you feel the farthest from God?
When things look pretty hopeless.
I was gonna say when I'm afraid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
When I'm afraid,
and you think, there's
or when
no
I
way-
can't,
there's no
see
way
a
out of
way
this.
out. Yeah, I can't see a way out.
No.
Yeah, that's me too. Yeah, I feel that way too. Oh, the world is an anxious place these days. Lots of worries and troubles. It's easy to think that things have never been worse. I don't think so. But scripture reminds us that humans have always had significant troubles. Do you ever feel that God should intervene more directly in what's happening in the world? That's a loaded question.
It is, it is.
You know what that brings it, you know what that reminds me of? Bruce Almighty. You know, when he has all the power and he's God, and it's
Yeah.
like, well, you have to fix it, you have to fix that, you have to fix, well, if you start fixing this and fixing that, then
That's gonna
this happens
happen,
here and
yeah.
that happens there, and it's like,
Yeah,
holy cow, you got the moon here, and you got the tidal waves, and you got everything,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, maybe not.
yeah.
I don't know. I think God does intervene, I just don't think we always see it or understand it.
Or do what he wants us to, or,
Well, yes,
yeah. I
yes.
mean, he gives us the ability
Yes,
to make the right decisions, but we don't always do that, or do the right things, or,
I think he's just up there shaking his head,
yeah.
thinking, geez, I created these people and gave them this whole beautiful world
And it just isn't,
and they're messing it up and they are at each other's throats and
I hope he sees the good in us too.
oh, I know he
Of course
does.
he does.
Of course he does, but I think sometimes I just think he feels a little sad.
But as you read the stories in the Bible,
Oh,
it's been forever.
it's
It's
been
always
forever.
been the
Yeah.
conflict and
And you even read some of the things like from the Romans, some of the old writings, and they say, oh, and the children don't respect their elders.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the people are doing this and they, you know, it's just,
a little bit different,
yeah, background.
Yeah.
thing on it, you know, it's a
Yeah.
little bit different twist,
Different
but
spin.
it's still the same.
Pretty much the same issues.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same.
People have been, yeah, people have been mean, they've been wonderful throughout the ages.
Yes.
It's just to try and find the light, find the light.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard.
Hard to find the light,
It's hard to stay in the light. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I think if you guys are okay with this, we've heard this story about the the pigs and all that and
Oh,
so if it's okay, we might just read. Are we
Okay.
okay if we just read?
Sure.
Okay. So in this passage, we see Jesus' great compassion. That would be the Mark 5 story of the Gerasene man. We also encounter the ancient understanding of mental illness as demonic possession.
yeah.
Legion has been feared and shunned as his condition has ravaged his brain and body. Jesus meets him exactly where he is, driving out his demons into a herd of pigs who charge down a steep bank into the sea. After the man's miraculous cure, he tells others what Jesus has done for him. As Christians, we can imitate Christ's compassionate care through our advocacy for people in our midst who are struggling. Meredith Lavelle Kesley, a senior pastor at Abiding Presence Lutheran in Burke, Virginia, a congregation with a vibrant mental health ministry that includes a partnership with therapist Sarah Tron. Pastor Kesley, I think that's how you say it, says the impetus came about when a former intern led a 2016 adult forum and 20 people signed up on the spot to form a mental health ministry. Congregation members now participate in NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, walks, host educational events, and debunked myths surrounding mental illness. In the United States healthcare system, psychiatric care is both hard to find and prohibitively expensive for many people. Oh, excuse me. At Abiding Presence, those who need and can't afford mental health services can receive funding from the church to pay a large percentage of their first sessions with a mental health professional.
this is a practical and concrete way for the congregation to serve others. The congregation's website also offers links to help people find providers such as therapists, medication discounts, and without insurance, and sometimes even with insurance, antidepressant and antipsychotic medications can amount to thousands of dollars per month. Pastor Kesley believes the church should engage beyond church walls and become one of the loudest voices in the room when mental health care is discussed. Possibilities, not limits, is the mindset of this church. So, it says in Mark 5, do you think the townspeople lose their fear of the man after Jesus cures him? Or might the suspicion that he's still sick linger?
You wonder.
Definitely.
You wonder.
Especially people that are that sick.
Yeah.
You know. Cause clearly he's been terrorizing people and
For a while, yeah.
for a long time, it's hard for people to let that stuff
Forget
go.
that.
Although, yeah, it's hard. So, Abiding Presence is notably active in its mental health ministry. Mental health has become one of the congregation's most important outreach ministries. Do you think your congregation would be interested in starting mental health ministry? And what might the obstacles be and what are the opportunities?
Well, you know, when we had that speaker that one time after Matt died, and that was about, kind of about that. It was about,
Very much about that.
yeah. About his journey and, I thought that
I
was,
think they can have like a testimony or, you know, from someone that, it always makes you more aware.
to put a face on it.
Yeah, to put a face, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That, you know, to have opportunities to hear about things. You know,
Well, and I think trying to understand mental illness, it's not the same as trying to understand.
yeah,
Physical
Cancer.
You know, you can see an X-ray and you can understand a blood test and you can, you know,
Yeah.
it's easy to see.
But your brain, it just the mental thing.
Yeah, and you can see somebody acting perfectly normal, or what we think of as perfectly normal, and then they're not.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, how do you get people to talk about that? I mean, how do you be open enough that people feel
yeah, I don't
safe?
think we recognize, you know,
Yeah.
things until afterwards, you know,
Yeah,
you know, then you think back and you think, oh, there was some signs,
yeah,
you know.
and how did I miss
But,
that?
yeah,
Yeah.
How did I not see
Yeah.
that?
but, you know,
Yeah.
it's,
If you're not looking for it, yeah.
right, yeah,
Well, some people are really good at hiding
Hiding,
things,
absolutely.
You know,
that too.
you don't want people to know there's something wrong with you. You don't want people to
Or
think
sometimes
you're
somebody
weak.
Yeah.
tell you stuff and you, I never would have believed that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
if you hadn't told me.
When they do brain scans, you know, and look, there have been studies to look into like the serial killers and things like that to see how the configuration of their brain might be different than others. But that has to be so extremely expensive to do that, and how to know.
And not everything shows up on a
No,
PET scan
no,
or
no.
doesn't show
No.
up.
Yeah, and again, I think, mental illness can cause a lot of physical,
Oh, yeah.
a lot of physical illness as well. And so you see somebody struggling with the physical illness, but you don't necessarily,
Well, like PTSD, you know, you think that's just military people, but
no.
It's anybody that's
Health
been in
workers,
a trauma
yeah.
experience of some
Mhm.
sort, which when
Yeah.
it came up, I'm
Yeah.
thinking, oh, it's just, and then I'm going, no, the more you read
Yeah.
about it, it's,
Yeah.
somebody can just have another experience that
Oh,
just
I
really.
did for the longest time after I had that accident down in that corner. Oh,
Mm.
God. Every time I couldn't drive by there for the longest time.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
go the other way around. And then I finally started making myself do it, and I still having flashbacks. It's like, I don't know how many. It was good 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, Twy and Mark just, they went to, South Dakota,
Oh,
and it was a year ago
your
today,
accident.
that they had their accident. And I said, so, did you
Go
say,
past that exit?
did you say a prayer when you went by? I go, yeah, I always do, she says. And she says, I don't talk on the phone anymore, I don't take popcorn. She's,
See, for me, I still
I
come up to that intersection. If there's somebody at that intersection, I'm talking to them the whole time.
Yeah.
Don't pull out in front of me.
Yeah.
Do not pull out
Yeah.
in front of me.
And I'll bet you slow down just so.
I do,
Yeah.
I do. I find myself doing it
I
all
do
the time.
too,
It's like,
yeah.
don't you dare, don't you do it.
Yeah.
And I always think about that when I come to that, I mean, I
I
even think too, when you see somebody come and go like, okay, is that truck
You
gonna
better
stop?
Yeah,
I love
it.
There's so many corners.
there is, but
There's so
it's
many corners
still,
like
there's,
that.
yeah, there,
Anymore,
you know, it's a hidden intersection, that's the problem. It's just, you know, if you're not familiar with the intersection, you're not aware of, I mean, if you look soon enough, you can see traffic coming from the
Yeah.
other direction, but you
Right.
have to know to look.
Right.
And if you wait until you get to the intersection, you're not gonna see,
No.
you can't see, and if there's corn there, you're really not gonna see.
Or snow.
Or snow,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
snow,
That's the
snow
our
works.
corner to get onto 65.
Yeah.
Right,
And it's like, every time, it's like, oh, I hate that corner.
yeah,
Cause there've been crash after crash after
oh, yeah.
crash.
That's when
Oh,
Fred Wicks, the superintendent here.
Oh, was that where that was?
He got killed up here by Mason City.
I thought so.
Yeah, but it was big, you know.
Snow.
It was snow.
Big
Yeah.
snow
Things,
drifts
yeah.
and things like that, you know.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know if our congregation would necessarily be but, I mean, I think not being afraid to ask people. I think
Well,
the
like I
trick
said, I
is to
think we
really
need to-
listen.
I
you
think
know.
we maybe need
Yeah.
to maybe learn more as a congregation,
Yeah,
How to.
it's not necessarily a topic people wanna talk about.
No,
That's the
no,
hard
no,
part.
no.
People don't
Yeah.
necessarily wanna,
Right.
and they don't necessarily, I don't know if a lot of people wanna know. I think,
Well, that's
you know, it's like you ask
Yeah,
somebody how they
that's-
are, and do you ever really listen? You know, if you said, oh yeah, I was thinking about committing suicide this morning.
Yeah, you think, oh, that's good, I'll just keep going,
And do you walk right by, yeah, I mean, but
once in a while, you can
Yes.
say something, just to see if
To see
they're
if they're actually
if they really
listening.
wanna know.
are you really listening? Do you
Yeah.
really care? Do you really care? Because I don't think you do.
Yeah,
How much time do you have?
yeah, once in a while, you
Well, I
just,
kinda did it with my neighbor today, I just happened to be out and I was, you know, trimming, we're trying to get the yard done, it's like, look out. And I noticed her outside, so I hollered over, how you doing? Oh yeah, I just got home from the hospital, what?
Yeah.
So then 10 minutes I probably couldn't spare today, but I took the time to find
Yeah.
out, she just gotten out of the hospital, well, husband is now in the hospital.
Oh.
It's like, oh, so it's like, oh dear.
Yep.
So feeling a little, so I was kinda glad I took the 10 minutes, even though I
Yeah.
didn't really have the 10 minutes, I
Yeah.
said, you know what? It'll be okay, if I
Yeah.
have to deal with that when I get home tonight, then I'll deal with it when I get home, but luckily I got it all
then they
done,
can,
so.
maybe later say, that day you talked to me, I just really needed that. Once in a while you hear that
Yeah.
from somebody too, that you think, and you probably don't even remember it,
Yeah.
Right.
doing it, but it was just that place and time, they really needed somebody to just listen to them and
Yeah, I can testify.
maybe remember that and do that again, or,
Yeah, something you guys probably don't know about me, but in college, I had a very traumatic situation with a roommate and, it got the best of me. And, I had met Kim that year. He lived downstairs, I lived upstairs in the apartments in Ernst. And, we had been dating, but we weren't serious. We weren't serious. I mean, not yet anyway. And I was so upset and nothing seemed to be going right. I mean, and, you know, when people talk about people who contemplate suicide, what the overwhelming response is, I just want the pain to stop, and that's where I was. I actually had a bottle of pills in my hand, and I was going to take them. I had already decided I was going to take them. And and there was a knock on the door. And I don't know what motivated me to answer it, but I did. It was Kim. And he said, I really feel like you need to go see your grandma. And I looked at him, you know, in my mind, I don't know what it was, but it snapped me out of where I was. And I said, but I don't have a way to get there. She's busy. He said, I can take you. Because I'm going home anyway. Why don't you just come with me and I'll drop you off at your grandma's on my way. Because I have to go right by there anyway. I said, well, you don't really have to go right by. I do. I said, just pack a bag and come with me. It'll be okay. So I did. And I ended up at my grandma's that weekend. And I mean, but he stopped me from hurting myself. And a weekend at my grandma's was exactly what I needed. I don't know how he knew that. But he did. And I don't know how he perceived that. Because, I mean, the whole time in the car, he had another friend in the front seat that he was taking, another kid from LaPorte City he was taking home. And I'm sitting, I'm literally hugging the door, thinking the whole time maybe I should just jump out now. But I didn't. Thank goodness I didn't. But yeah, I mean, it was a long way out of that darkness. You know, and and it's not a physical pain. It's like mental anguish. You know, like when you read the Psalm, you talk about the anguish and and that's where it is. It's like this hole that you're in, and you can't see the light. You can't see it anywhere. It's just dark. You know, and all you want to do is sleep, but you can't sleep. It's like, and you can't turn it off. You just, you know, like you could turn off the TV, you could turn off the radio, but you can't turn it off. It's there, and it's there all the time. So, I mean, there are people who intervene in your life, and you kind of hope that maybe you could be that person for somebody. You don't know whenever you could, but, and sometimes you probably, the majority of the time, you probably never know. But maybe it's that one day or that one time or that one.
See, it's a still voice, you know, something told him that, you know.
Yeah, and he listened.
Yeah.
I mean, at that time, he wasn't necessarily
Or they could, you know,
pastor
sometimes.
material.
Yeah.
Some will say, you know, I'm okay, I'm okay.
Yeah, and I
You
kept
know,
saying that.
and you- and
I did.
you
I
get-
kept
and-
saying
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm gonna
you
be
get off
okay.
the phone, and you think, no, they're not, I gotta go, you know. It's just a feeling you have, and I know, I've been in that situation where they've said later, you know, I'm so glad you know, came.
Came
Yeah.
at that time.
But it is, you know, you can just kind of get that feeling that, you know, I can't, just let it go, you know.
I think that's sometimes when we go to some of the visitations that we go to, you know, I mean, that we went to, I mean, some people like Lions or some other things that we go to, and we're going like, oh, do we have time to go? And then we do, and then we don't ever regret it.
No.
Because
Yeah.
the family
Yes.
kind of is like, oh, I'm glad you came, you know, or something like that. You just think, and they're not maybe as close, you know,
Right.
close,
Right.
but it's just amazing how, you know, you get to talking about things and you know, so I'm going like, well, you know, I guess it's an okay thing to do. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I just think everybody just needs to be aware. You know, it can happen to anybody, anytime.
Anytime, yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
you know, if it happens, you know, and sometimes you don't even realize it's happening to you.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't know to reach out for help.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you need people to push you,
Yep.
prod you. You know, I really think you should do
Sometimes
this.
you know, like hear it in their voice or, you
Yeah.
know, or something they say or, you know, just
If you
kinda-
slow down and listen.
Or yeah, it
The
just
trick
triggers,
is
it
to
just
slow down
triggers
and
really
listen.
hard.
something in you that, yeah, oh, no, they're not doing okay, you gotta.
Yeah, they're
do
not doing okay,
You
yeah.
know?
It's, and you know, and if they don't want the help, you know, it's still maybe persisting enough to maybe check on them the next day or check on them the next week or, you know, I guess I would just, you know, we all need to be better at that.
We do.
I think we all
For
need
sure.
to be better.
Absolutely.
So should we, should we pray?
Yeah.
Are we there? Yeah, we're there,
Yeah.
right? Okay, good. Lord
Lord
of
of
life,
life,
what we sometimes see as a definite challenge
can indeed be a joyful opportunity. Through your love, we are never alone. You are with us always. You call us to care lovingly for one another in sickness as well as in health. Send us out to make a difference, to serve others with compassion, and to love ourselves amid our own struggles, as we choose life together with you. In Jesus' name, amen.
So bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you next month.